Did you know that a modern high-end motherboard can have over 10 layers of copper traces, stretching for miles if laid end-to-end, all to manage a flow of electricity more precise than a heart surgeon's hand? Yet most people treat this foundational piece of silicon like an afterthought, a mere tray to hold the parts that actually matter. If you want to avoid being the person who brings a plastic knife to a gunfight, hit that subscribe button right now, because we are about to dismantle the marketing lies of the tech industry. The motherboard is the silent dictator of your system, the central nervous system that decides exactly how fast your expensive processor is allowed to run. It is the difference between a stable workstation and a chaotic mess of crashes and thermal throttling that ruins your productivity. We often get blinded by the flashy lights and the aggressive armor plating on the box, forgetting that under the hood, a war is being waged for your wallet. Let us begin with the Intel Z series, the undisputed monarch of the Blue Team's consumer lineup. This tier is designed for the enthusiast who refuses to accept the word no from their hardware. If you have purchased a processor with a K suffix, you have already paid the entry fee for this exclusive club. The Z series is the only place where Intel permits you to truly unlock the shackles of your CPU, pushing clock speeds into the realm of the extreme. Think of the voltage regulator modules, or VRMs, as the lungs of the motherboard. On a Z series board, these lungs are massive, capable of breathing life into an i9 processor that is screaming for 500 watts of power during a heavy render. Without these heavy-duty components, your high-end chip is like a marathon runner trying to breathe through a straw. You are paying for the privilege of control, for the massive array of high-speed lanes that allow your storage and graphics cards to communicate without a stutter. But then we stumble into the Intel B series, which I like to call the smart person's sanctuary. Here, the marketing department loses its grip on your throat, because the B series offers nearly everything a rational human being needs. You lose the ability to overclock your CPU, but let us be honest with ourselves for a moment. Are you actually going to spend 3 days fine-tuning voltages for a 5% performance gain that you won't even notice outside of a benchmark? The B series still allows for memory tuning, which is where the real-world snappiness of a system often lives. It provides solid connectivity and enough expansion for a modern graphics card and a couple of lightning-fast drives. For the vast majority of gamers and creators, this is the sweet spot where performance meets price in a rare moment of corporate mercy. It allows you to take the $200 you saved and put it toward a better GPU, which is what actually puts frames on your screen. Then there is the Intel H series, a name that covers a confusing and often treacherous landscape. On one hand, you have the H770, a board that offers more lanes than the B series but still forbids overclocking. It is often priced so awkwardly that it sits in a no man's land, ignored by those who want the best and those who want a bargain. It is the middle child of the Intel family, forgotten and frequently unnecessary. On the other hand, we have the H610, the absolute bottom of the barrel where dreams go to die. These boards are built with the bare minimum of components, often featuring only 2 RAM slots and VRMs that would break out in a cold sweat if they ever saw an i7 processor. This is the realm of the office computer, the machine meant for spreadsheets and emails, not for the heavy lifting of modern digital life. If you try to build a high-end gaming rig on an H610, you are essentially putting a lawnmower engine inside a Ferrari. For those who operate in a world where a computer crash means lost revenue, there is the Intel W series. These are the workstations, the stoic monks of the motherboard world that value stability above all else. They support Xeon processors and error correction code memory, which can detect and fix data corruption on the fly. There are no rainbow lights here, no aggressive branding, just rock-solid reliability for environments where the blue screen of death is an unacceptable liability. Shifting our gaze to the red camp, we find the AMD X series, the no-compromise flagship for the Ryzen faithful. AMD has built a reputation on longevity, and the X series is the embodiment of that promise. These boards are designed with dual chipset architectures to provide a staggering amount of connectivity. When you see that E suffix standing for extreme, It means you are getting PCIe 5.0 support for both your graphics card and your storage. This is a bet on the future, a way to ensure that when the next generation of hardware arrives in 2026 or beyond, your motherboard won't be the bottleneck. It is built for the Ryzen 9 user who wants to plug in 4 NVMe drives and a flagship GPU without ever worrying about shared bandwidth. It is the ultimate expression of more is more, provided you have the bank account to support the ambition. However, the real crown jewel of AMD's lineup is the B series, the undisputed value king of the entire industry. Unlike Intel, AMD allows full CPU and memory overclocking on their mid-range boards. This single decision has forced the entire market to become more competitive, giving power back to the user. A well-built B650 motherboard can handle almost any chip in AMD's lineup, while offering features that were considered flagship only a few years ago. It is the ultimate power-to-the-people platform, offering a balance of cost and longevity that is hard to ignore. If you are building a system today, you have to ask yourself if you really need the extra lanes of the X series. For most users, the answer is a resounding no, and the B series stands ready to save you hundreds of dollars without sacrificing the soul of your machine. At the very bottom of the AMD stack sits the A series, the budget foundation. This is where every non-essential feature is stripped away to reach the lowest possible price point. There is no overclocking here, and the power delivery is simplified to the point of being utilitarian. It is perfectly suited for a Ryzen 5 system used for schoolwork or light office tasks. But it is not a place for performance enthusiasts. It is honest hardware for an honest, low-intensity job. Then we step into a different dimension entirely with the AMD WRX and TRX series. These are not for gamers, and they are certainly not for the faint of heart or thin of wallet. Built for the Threadripper family of processors, these boards offer up to 128 PCIe lanes. To put that in perspective, a standard consumer board usually has around 20 to 28. These motherboards are the heavy machinery of the computing world, designed for three-dimensional rendering, complex scientific simulations, and massive compute tasks. They offer 8 memory slots for quad-channel bandwidth, allowing data to flow like a river rather than a stream. This is where the line between a personal computer and a high-performance server blurs into insignificance. You don't buy this because you want high frame rates. You buy this because you are building a digital empire. The reality of the motherboard market is that every tier exists to solve a specific problem. But the industry relies on your ego to make you overspend. They want you to feel like a pro by buying the top-tier board, even if your actual workload never stresses a single component on it. They use words like military grade and gaming optimized to distract you from the fact that a board half the price would perform identically in your specific scenario. Before you click buy on that flagship board, ask yourself a personal question. Are you buying it because you need the features, or are you buying it because the box looks impressive? If you are honest with yourself, you might find that the extra money is better spent on a faster SSD or a quieter cooling system. The right motherboard is not the one that costs the most. It is the one that disappears into your system and allows your components to reach their full potential without drama. Building a PC is an exercise in balance, a symphony where every part must play its role without overpowering the others. If you overspend on the motherboard, you are starving your GPU. If you underspend, you are suffocating your CPU. It is a delicate dance of silicon and electricity that requires a cold, calculated approach. As we move toward 2025 and beyond, the complexity of these systems will only increase, but the fundamentals will remain the same. Understand your needs, ignore the marketing fluff, and build based on the reality of your daily life. Because at the end of the day, a motherboard doesn't just support your system, it defines the ceiling of what you can achieve. What was the biggest mistake you ever made when picking out a motherboard for a build? Did you fall for the gaming branding only to realize you could have saved a fortune? Tell me your horror stories in the comments below, and let us learn from each other's expensive lessons. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe to the channel for more straight-talking tech analysis. Remember, the goal is to build a tool that serves you, not a monument to your overspending. Choose wisely, stay cynical, and I will see you in the next one.